Okay, we are in middle of Torah Yud Aleph. Ani Hashem Hu Sh'mi. Okay, so we are explaining, in the middle of explaining the story of Rabbi Bar Chana about this and how this Torah Yud Aleph of Likutei Moharan, how it fits into the story of Rabbi Bar Chana. This Torah in Likutei Moharan is extremely significant. As it relates and connects tremendously to the whole Geula from Mitzrayim. And the whole Geula from Mitzrayim is all about the redemption of the aspect of Dibur, as the Arizal speaks about. The aspect of Dibur, the Arizal says in the Kavanot, and it's also in Eitz Chaim, when the Mochin are lacking, when the consciousness is lacking, and when the consciousness is, instead of Gadlut HaMochin, the expanded consciousness, it's Katnut HaMochin, the constricted consciousness, right? Dinim, and the Mochin are Ne'elamim, they are hidden, they're completely concealed. So at that point, the Arizal says there is this state called Ne'elamti Dumiyah. Ne'elamti means that I became mute. I was muted, Dumiyah. Okay, Dumiyah also means lack of speech, not being able to speak. Okay, but the Arizal explains on this pasuk that the secret of where does lack of speech come from is hidden in this pasuk. The Arizal explains that ne'elamti, ilem, right, being a mute, comes from dumiyah. And the Arizal explains that the word dumiyah is really made of two words, dom yudke. It's when the yudke of the yudke vavke, this is the yudke, is the chokhmah and the bina, which is the consciousness, is dom. It's the aspect of dom is lacking. Dom is meaning inanimate. It's lacking chiyas. So it's concealed. When the yudke, the mochin of chokhmah and bina are concealed and they're lacking chiyas, they're inanimate, they're not functioning, at that point, then you have ne'elamti. The way Rebbe Nachman explains it in the Likutei Moharan in a couple of places is that he calls it the secret of Mipiv da'atu tvuna, and we said this previously a couple of times. Mipiv da'atu tvuna, that from a person's mouth, we can tell the state of consciousness that he's in, whether he has an expanded consciousness or lack of. And that's the mipiv, from the mouth is revealed the da'at and the tvuna of this person. And so this Torah here is all about getting to a point of Tvunot Torah le'omka, understanding the Torah in absolute depth. And the way we do that, and what's the significance, what's the importance of understanding the Torah to its absolute depth? It's not just something that is to do with your intelligence, that you're have a greater intelligence now that you understand Torah on this level. It's all about your connection to Hashem. And that the significance of understanding Torah to its absolute depth, it's a state of consciousness. And that state of consciousness, it shines and it empowers the words of a person to be holy words. And those words of the person, empowered and energized with this consciousness, they go and they heal the person in all the darkest places of his soul. So it's a tremendous tikkun. It's a tremendous tikkun for a person to have such a power of speech, to create a reality of healing, being healed and being connected to the Ribbon Shalom. Okay, so that's what this Torah is all about. This Torah is empowering the speech with the consciousness of Tvunat Torah le'omka. And the way that we do that is by adding the vav in the kavad pei, in the heavy words, in the words that are inanimate, like we said, ne'elamti dumiyah. They are like a domem, right? They are inanimate, they're lacking chiyus, and you're bringing the chiyus into the words, into the speech. And the speech represents the malchut, which is the hey of Yud Kei Vav Kei, the last letter of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. And the chiyus that you're drawing into the speech, which is this consciousness, mizmochim, is represented by the letter vav of Yud Kei Vav Kei. And as we said, the letter vav of Yud Kei Vav Kei includes within it also the yud and the kei. So it's Yud Kei Vav included within the yesod of the Vav, and that is drawn into the Malchut, and that gives her chiyas. Now this yesod of the Vav, because the Vav in numerical value is 6, right? And that represents the 6 sefirot from Chesed until Yesod. And so the the Yesod, the Tiferet, the Vav of Yud Kevavki is drawn to the Hey, to the Malchut, to the Kevad Peh, through the Yesod. And the Yesod represents the Tikkun HaBrit. It represents Yosef HaTzadik. And the Yosef HaTzadik, the Tikkun HaBrit, we have that in two aspects of Tikkun HaBrit. We have the Tikkun HaBrit of Halacha, and we have the Tikkun HaBrit of Kabbalah. There is the Tikkun HaBrit, Shmirat HaBrit, the being pure and holy in the aspect of the 6 days of the week. That's the aspect of serving Hashem when there is concealment, when there is darkness, when things are difficult, when things are challenging. You serve Hashem even in those places, and you make sure that even in those places you seek to stay within the boundaries of the Torah. That's one level of Shmirat HaBrit. And the other level of Shmirat HaBrit is that you, on your highest highs, in your greatest spiritual experiences, you seek to further recognize that Hashem is infinite, and you recognize that you have only just begun connecting and recognizing the greatness of Hashem, because Hashem's greatness is infinite. And so therefore, you don't get too comfortable in that peak. Even when you reach that peak, that spiritual peak, you begin again serving Hashem as if it's the first time you're serving Hashem, with those same eyes of wonder and excitement. And you don't just chill out and relax in that peak, that spiritual peak. You find a way to serve Hashem even in that place, in an even deeper place, in an even deeper way, from that highest place that you've ascended to. Okay, and this is a concept. These two aspects are a concept that is spoken about continuously throughout Likutey Moharan. It's the theme that you see in many places in Likutey Moharan, and no one out there is going to ever explain to you that this theme is also here in this Torah, because you have to really have seen all the other Torahs in Likutey Moharan and see it as a theme that's interwoven in all the Torahs, to be able to understand that it's also connected to these two aspects of Brit. And these two aspects of Shmirat HaBrit, the 6 days of the week, and the aspect of Shabbat, are also brought down many places in Likutey Moharan. So that's called Ratzov Hashav in Rabbi Nachman, in the Baal Shem Tov, in the Zohar, V'achiyut Ratzov Hashav. Now, these are the two aspects, as we said, the two aspects of Shmirat HaBrit. And based on this, we can also understand, according to Kabbalah and according to these deep Torahs of Rebbe Nachman, an unbelievable Gemara in Masechet Brachot. In Masechet Brachot, right at the beginning of Perek Ein Omdim, the Mishnah says that Ein Omdim leitpalel ela mitoch koved rosh. We don't stand to daven Shmona Esrei unless we are in a state of koved rosh. Koved rosh means literally a seriousness of the head, or a seriousness of consciousness, a state of seriousness. Okay, that things are serious. It's the opposite. It's complete opposite of kalut rosh. Kalut rosh is when a person is lightheaded, and a person is lightheaded. He makes light of life. He makes light of people. He makes light of the Torah. He makes everything as if he takes away the importance and the significance. Now, these two sides of the spectrum, these two ends of the spectrum, are exactly the difference between kavod for Hashem or the opposite of kavod for Hashem. It's called bizayon, right? Shmirat HaBrit is always synonymous with kavod Hashem. Like we see that Yosef HaTzadik is named Yosef because, as Rachel says, Ashsaf Elohim et cherpati. Hashem has gathered and removed all of my embarrassment. Yosef is the one that removes embarrassment. Bizayon, he takes away embarrassment. So because he is the aspect of Kavod Hashem, the one who rectifies Kavod Hashem, the honor of Hashem, is Yosef. And that's why when Shimon and Levi, when Shechem, when they wanted Dinah, they wanted to take Dinah for themselves. Shechem wanted to take Dinah for himself, right? And Shimon and Levi said, Ki cherpa hi lanu. It's an embarrassment for us to have our sister married to men that have orla, that don't have the tikkun of the brit, right? Ki chirpa hi lanu. It's an embarrassment. Orla, the lack of tikkun abrit, the lack of tikkun abrit is an aspect of embarrassment, an aspect of bizayon, of busha. On the opposite, Tikkun Abrit is the aspect of kavod Hashem. That's why also Yehoshua, when he does the Brit Milah for Am Yisrael in the Midbar, it says, Hayom giliti et chefpat ha'am. Today I removed the embarrassment of the nation by doing for them the Brit Milah. So, when someone is mechabed, when someone gives honor to Hashem, it means, or anyone, right? When you give honor to someone or to something, when you respect something, it means that you're giving it you have a sense of seriousness towards it. You have a sense of attributing significance and importance to that thing or that person, right? On the opposite, kalut rosh is making light. When you make light of somebody, you're embarrassing them, you're dishonoring them, you're disrespecting them. And so koved rosh is an aspect of Kvod Hashem. When you come to pray to the Ribbon Shalom, when you come to stand Shemona Esrei, you don't stand in Shemona Esrei without starting from a point of, what is it that I'm doing now? Where is it that I'm standing? Who is it that I'm speaking to now? Right? That's a sense of giving significance, valuing the situation, valuing that I'm speaking now to Ribbon Shalom, the King of Kings. And that's all about Yirat Shammai. That's all about awe of the Rebbe Shalom. It's not the yira ta'onesh. It's not the fear of something bad happening to me. That if I don't daven now, if I don't pray now, something bad might happen. No, that's not what we're speaking about. The yira that we begin davening from, we begin every prayer from this state of yira. It's an aspect of awe. It comes from contemplating the greatness and the importance and the transcendence, how infinite and how vast and great and powerful the Ribbon Shalom is, and how he's here, how close he is to me right now. He's absolutely present as much as he's absolutely transcendent, and that I'm speaking to him right now, and he's listening to me right now, and he has the power to give me everything that I'm asking for, everything that I need. And he has the power to manifest everything before my eyes. He is manifesting everything before my eyes. This reality that I'm standing in is all from the Rebbe Shalom in this moment. And so that puts a person in a state of Koved Rosh. And so Koved Rosh is the same thing as Kavod. It's the Kevad. The Kevad is that heaviness, that inanimate, that domem, which represents the Malchut. Why is the Malchut always the inanimate or the domem or the heavy? It's because the Malchut is, as the Arizal teaches and as the Zohar teaches, Leitla migama klum. She doesn't have anything from her own self. So she's always lacking chiyas. She's always a vessel that receives. And the vessel, as the vessel is by itself, seen by itself, standing by itself, it is lacking from the light. It doesn't have light on its own. It only receives. And the Malchut is the most perfect vessel. So it only receives. So it doesn't have anything from its own self. And so it's kivat. But when you put the vav into it and you elevate the Malchut, you give significance to the Malchut of Hashem, and you draw the Vav into it, and that becomes Koved Rosh. Okay, so you have, with your consciousness, drawn Vav into the Kevad, into the Malchut, and that's the Yirat Shamayim. That you do this through contemplating the greatness of the Ribbon Shalom. And that's the way that a person begins daven. That's the way the person begins Shemona Esrei. Now, in the continuation of that sugya, what's really amazing, astounding to see, is that the Gemara brings, so this was the Mishnah. Then the Gemara brings a Braita that gives us another solution. How is a person supposed to stand to daven Shemona Esrei? What state does a person stand to daven Shemona Esrei? And the Braita tells us that a person should only stand to daven Shemona Esrei out of halacha psuka. That a person should first learn one or two halachot that are practical, that are written in a practical way. These are halachot that don't have any questions on them, any arguments and difference of opinions in these halachot. These are halachot that are clear, concise, to the point, and exact and practical. Halacha l'maisa. Okay. Now, what is the importance of this? So Rebbe Nachman, one of the things that Rebbe Nachman taught that as like a practical thing that a person needs to do every day, and he says it's one of the greatest tikkunim that a person can do every day. He says, he speaks about mikveh, he speaks about tikkun klali, he speaks about speaking to Hashem in your own language, hitbodedut. learning a certain amount of Torah every day. He speaks about simcha, but one of the things that he says is the most important, that he says, even if a person had the worst day of his life spiritually, right? A person can have had the worst day of his life. Eventually, a person will come to better times, and a person will be able to fix those days that went by that were maybe spiritually disconnected. But he says that's all dependent on one thing. It's dependent on you learning every day, even a small, tiny amount of halachot psukot, halacha lemaisa, of halacha, practically applicable halacha. And he says that this is one of the most important tikkunim that a person needs to do every day. And if a person does this, so that's it. Even if the day was, in every other respect, it was completely disconnected and completely, as they say in Hebrew, ala panim, completely, inside out, upside down. But through this tikkun of halacha lemaisa, halachot psukot, it causes that afterwards you'll be able to elevate the day through that tikkun. And so now what's the importance of the halachot psukot? Halacha psuka, halacha, it's in general, is the letters hey kala. Halacha, the letters hey kala, represents the malchut. Okay, and that's what halacha is all about, because malchut is the kingship of the king, right? How do we know? How do we see? How is the fact that someone is king? How is that expressed? How is that revealed? It's revealed by the laws that the people of his kingdom follow, and that's what halacha is all about. So the malchut of Hashem is represented by the halachot. And not just any halachot, right? We're speaking about halacha lemaisa when it's practical, okay? Because that's when the kingship, that's when you are showing that you are a subject of the king, when you are following halacha lemaisa practically in your life, all of these different things. How to eat, how to sleep, every aspect of your life is involved in the Shulchan Aruch, in the halacha lemaisa, in the practical halacha. And so that's why halacha is hey kala. Hey of the Yud Kei Vav Kei is the malchut, and she is the kala, she is the bride. And so that's the malchut of Hashem. And so when we learn halacha every day, we are accepting upon ourselves malchut Shamayim, the kingship of Hashem. And that's the most important aspect in all of Avodat Hashem, is that we actually not just pray about accepting upon ourselves the yoke of heaven, accepting upon us Hashem as our king, but we actually show that we are doing this by learning halacha, because we are seeking to know what does the king want from me, and he is my king, I'm his subject, and these are the laws, and I'm going to follow them. And that's what halacha lemaisa is all about. And this is the importance of learning halacha lemaisa, halacha psuka, before a person daven Shemona Esrei, because the most important thing for a person to do and to connect to when a person daven Shemona Esrei, as the Baal Shem Tov teaches, is that when a person says Adonai Svatay Tiftach Upi Agiti Latecha, the Malchut, the Shechina, is speaking the words from your mouth. Okay, and so according to the Baal Shem Tov, Shemona Esrei, Tefillah in general, but especially Shemona Esrei, is not to be seen as something, as a time where I'm asking Hashem, begging him to fulfill my wishes and to give me what I'm needing, and if I'm worthy of it, then he will answer and he will give me what I'm asking for. That's not the way the Baal Shem Tov explains what tefillah is. The Baal Shem Tov explains that tefillah is all about manifesting. Every word in the Shemona Esrei, as you are saying these words, and if you are saying it from the right state of consciousness, you are filling the vessel, you are filling the Malchut with this tremendous light, and that unification between the Malchut expressed through your words and the Kudsha Brichu, which is the consciousness, the Vav, that causes the souls to be drawn into bodies, and everything in the universe are bodies filled with souls. Even the inanimate have, in order for it to have a form, we spoke about this in the past, in order for it to have a form, it needs to, the tzura of the chomer is the neshama baguf. It's the soul, the form of matter, the form that is given to matter. Even a table has a form, and the form that is given to the table, that is in itself the soul within the body. And so everything that is manifested is a soul within a body. And so when you're praying and you have the consciousness, the mochin, drawn into these words, the malchut, you are manifesting. And when you're saying ata chonen adat, right, that you bestow upon us this wisdom, this dat, so you are manifesting that as you are saying that is being created. That is becoming your reality. Not just your reality, right? It goes a lot further than that. All the worlds, all the way to the highest world, all the way down to this world, this physical world, are affected in this positive way when you are praying. And so therefore, the most important thing for the tefillah is to be connected to the malchut. When you come to pray, you cannot begin praying without having the vessel, without having the malchut. And then you're able to draw through your consciousness, you're able to draw through these words, this light into this vessel, the soul into the body. And so that's why the most important thing to do when a person prays, the most important thing to have is Hashrat Shechina, is that the Shechina should dwell upon you. And to the extent that a person has the Shechina upon you when you're praying, that's the level that you will have success in your prayer being answered, in your prayer actually causing an effect in this physical reality. And that's why the Gemara goes into in the Mishnah is about how you shouldn't pray out of depression, because the Shekhinah is so far from someone who's depressed. And also lightheadedness, when a person is lightheaded, and a person is in leitzanut, when a person is like joking around, then a person's consciousness, that state, that deeper state, is not there. And so that means that the Shekhinah is not there, and he's not able to cause this yichud to happen, this unification to happen through the prayer. And that's the importance of praying from Koved Rosh, praying from this state of this seriousness. And that's why also the Gemara brings in that same sugya this braita of learning halacha psuka, practical halacha before Shemoneh Esrei, because that's also an aspect of malchut. If you want to connect yourself to malchut, in order to prepare yourself to pray, you need to connect yourself to malchut. Prayer, tefillah, is all about malchut. Hashem sfatay tiftach. It's all, that's the shar. The Tikkun Azar calls the malchut tar'a. Tar'a is the shar, the gate. It's the gateway that you enter and you ascend. That's the first. As I say, komat karka. That's the lobby. That's the first floor, right? In all the prayer, in order to ascend and in order to cause all of these wonderful things to be created as reality, the first level is the malchut. Without the malchut, you have nothing. And so that's why you need to prepare yourself either with this deep contemplating the greatness of Hashem until you come to a state of awe of the greatness of Hashem, and that's Koved Rosh. And through that state, you have malchut. Or you can also do it through learning halacha psuka, learning practical, halacha that's practical and clear and concise. Now, what's the difference between them? Because the Gemara shows that there is a difference. The Gemara says at the end of that sugya that the Chachamim followed the Mishnah of praying from Koved Rosh, and then there was another rabbi in the Gemara that followed the Braita to daven from a halacha psuka. Rav Ashi followed the Braita to daven Shemoneh Esrei from a halacha psuka, whereas Chachamim followed the Mishnah. What's the difference between these two preparations for Shemoneh Esrei? The difference is exactly what we're learning in this Torah here, and this is why I brought that up. These are two levels of Shmirat HaBrit. These are representing and corresponding, paralleling the two levels of Shmirat HaBrit. The two levels of Shmirat HaBrit, again, were halacha and Kabbalah. The lower level was halacha, and the higher level was Kabbalah. What's the difference between them? So halacha is the laws of Hashem within, as we said, the worlds of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. These are the places of where Hashem's infinite presence is concealed on some level, right? The lower you get, the more it's concealed from Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. But Hashem's infinite presence is no longer absolutely revealed as it is in Atzilut. Atzilut is, as a lot of the tzaddikim explained, comes from the lashon of etzlo. Etzlo means by him. Atzilut is all about the consciousness, the recognition that there's nothing but Hashem, but in a revealed way. It's not just not just thinking. It's actually experiencing that there's nothing but the Ribbon Shalom. I too am not here. There's nothing but Hashem. That's what Atzilut is. It's all about etzlo. And that's what Kabbalah comes to teach us. Kabbalah is all about learning godliness, learning that everything is godliness, everything is elokut. Whereas halacha is within the confines of space and time, within this physical reality. How do I stay connected to Hashem? And how do I show that I'm a subject of Hashem and I accept Hashem's malchut upon me? right? So, therefore, Koved Rosh is represented by Kabbalah. Koved Rosh, that seriousness, that awe of Hashem's greatness, it's a connection to Hashem's infinite, Hashem being the infinite being. That's Koved Rosh. Whereas the halacha psuka is the lower level, it's the halacha. And these are two ways of connecting oneself to the malchus and drawing the chiyus of the vav within the kivat peh, and that's how you honor the Ribono Shel Olam. Okay, and so this is all in this Torah here, and this is also what we have in Pesach. Pesach is called Pesach, as the Arizal says, Pesach. The name Pesach means, the word Pesach can also mean two words. Pesach, the mouth that speaks, because it's the mouth, the speech of the mouth that was saved, that was delivered from the exile of Mitzrayim when the Mochin were brought back to a state of revelation in the Geula of Mitzrayim. Okay, so we're going to have to stop here today.